Hey, everybody.
Everybody.
I think we need to start over here now. You shouldn't have said it. Check, check.
Check, check,
Check.
check.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
I'm Katie Hawkins.
And I'm Molly.
My daughter. I am the co-host for a podcast called She Speaks Stories. And I've also just written a book with that same title. And then the subtitle, Finding Hope, Help, and Healing in a Hard World. And I have dedicated this book to my daughter, Molly.
Partially.
I
Partial
did dedicate
dedication.
it to some other people. But the whole prologue is written about Molly and to Molly. So I decided that while Molly's home from New York for a little visit, that her and I would sit down and do a little interview for you listeners and all you potential readers of this book when it comes out.
Great book.
Because I thought you should know Molly, since it's kind of written to her.
Here I am.
So here she is. Before I dive into the questions, Molly, that stem from my opening prologue in the book about you, I wondered if you would just tell our listeners a little bit about your life up into the point of the day when I told you the bad news.
Yes, I'd love to. Basically, I've just kind of been all over, trying to find something that I love to do. I worked for Home Depot briefly. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Walking around Home Depots, asking people to get cabinets.
Yes, that lasted about 2 weeks, as I recall.
2 weeks. Then I worked at a hotel in DC. Then I got my real estate license. Oh, I worked at a financial firm.
Yeah, for a while. And they were going to make you some kind of investment banker or something.
That's a different person. That was not me.
That was Summer. Sorry.
Shout out to Summer. And then I moved to Colorado and worked on a ranch.
I do recall that.
It was fun.
Very distinctly recall the day where you called me up and said, I'm on interestingjobs.com and cooljobs.com, sorry. And you said, do you think I should move to Alaska and run Iditarods or a dude ranch in Colorado where I could be a horse wrangler?
Yeah, that was a toss-up. I don't know what could have been if I went to Alaska, but we'll never know.
You chose the job of horse wrangler, even though you didn't ride horses or know how to wrangle them.
Horse wrangler. I was not interviewed for that position at all. And then I moved back to DC, worked for a nonprofit, then
counseling gals that were rescued out of sex trafficking. That was an interesting time in your life.
Yes, that was incredible and intense. Then I was like, I just really want to move to New York. And my best friend, Summer, the investment banker, moved there. And so I just kind of was looking for anything. And now I've lived there for like 7 years.
All righty. Just quick, tell our listeners like how you were raised.
I was raised so well.
Christian home and military life, because then you can explain how my book is organized.
Yes, I was raised in a very loving little family and godly people at the helm. And we moved every year because your husband was in the Marines.
Yes, your father. And not every year, actually, but at least every other or every third year.
Often.
And my book is actually organized into the different houses we lived in.
It's very neat the way you did it.
So that's how you were raised. But after maybe 5, 6 years in New York City, you had some startling news for me.
What?
About your sexuality?
Oh, yes. I think that was maybe year 1, year 2.
Oh, hints. Year 1
I
and 2?
think it was just straight up.
No, I didn't get to straight up until down the road.
It was maybe year 2 in New York. And I am gay. And so that has been a journey. Trying to understand what God says about that and just wrestling with that.
And myself also. As you
Probably
know,
more so than me.
Many conversations about that. Many tears, but lots of laughter too. And just a lot of wrestling, a lot of soul searching. Okay, so that's some background. Now to fast forward, the opening part of my book, the prologue, I very clearly say that you were the first person I called and told my diagnosis of a very aggressive breast cancer to.
Yes.
And you had quite the reaction to that news. Can you just kind of explain that day?
Well, as you know, you're my best friend. And so my whole life, my biggest fear is that you would die. And it was kind of like our joke that anytime you left, I would say, please don't die, because I was panicked that you would. And so this was my biggest fear, that you would get cancer and die, or die really in any way. And
stemming from the Black Widow bite I got in 29 Palms, where your father freaked out. And
that was tough. First grade, devastated.
Said I was in the ER and he didn't know whether I'd be coming back. Yeah.
Tough.
Careful, parents, what you say to young and precious.
So I was at work and I got a call from you, and I know we were waiting for the results, and I went out into the kitchen area and was looking out the window, and you told me, and I just felt so numb and like everything just stopped, and I was just in shock. And then I went to the bathroom, cried, then I had to go back to work.
And you only lasted about an hour and then went home.
Well, thankfully it was like 4, 5.
So you could go home.
It was time.
But what I recall very distinctly were your words to me. And kind of an immediate gut reaction of yours. I don't want to say against God, but about God at that point in your life. And you said, well, I guess this is God punishing me for not fully surrendering my life to him. And I guess prayer doesn't really work. What is the point of prayer? I've been begging him for your biopsy to be clear, but he didn't answer that. So I don't know. I don't think my words have any power. And I think he's punishing me. So I wrote about that in that opening prologue of my book, because that really was the impetus for me to write the whole book, was to kind of talk about that. Like, is that what God's like? But can you just explain your feelings during that time about God?
Yeah, I felt like he was punishing me because maybe I wasn't living a good life. Maybe I was bad, and this is what I got for being bad. And I just felt like, what is the point of praying? Because you can't make him do anything. And it's not like he gives certain people cancer and certain people not cancer. So if he doesn't intentionally give you cancer, then why wouldn't he just why would he take it back? So it didn't make sense, and why some people get better, other people don't. I don't think he's picking and choosing the best people. I feel like just is what it is. Like, it's just life.
So, in other words, your theology, what you really deep in your heart believed about God at that point, was it really was a works-based system, and good people, bad things should not happen to good people, and if you're relatively bad, you may be punished by God.
I didn't really think that deeply into it. I just was like,
that was your
I feel like I'm being punished.
core response. Yeah. And truthfully, I do know that trials and tribulations that come along, whether they're big like a serious cancer diagnosis or small ones, so, the everyday mundane kind, which are a lot of the trials I read about in my book, very kind of ordinary trials, if you will. But no matter the size of the trial, oftentimes trials can build a wall between our spirits and the Spirit of God. Now, on the flip side, they can also create a pathway, if you will, or a motivation for us to connect more intimately with Him. So, you know me, obviously, Molly, so well, and you and I have had a million conversations through the years about God. You have watched my own life unfold. You know my passion in life, what drives me, is to glorify God and truly learn to obey Him, learn to enjoy Him, to walk out His commands, His ways, to make Him known, to praise Him. And you also know that the deepest part of my heart wants to see you walking strong in His love, His security, the knowledge that He saves you, not based on merit, not based on how good you are. He sends help and hope and healing because of His lavish love for people. And my greatest desire for you is that I would see you walking securely in His love and living out your purpose to glorify Him, and this like dream, I don't know, it's not really a dream, but a deep desire in my heart that you and I together someday would stand before Him and hear Him say to both of us, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So
I don't know if He does it two at a time.
probably not. That's why I said I don't know if it's a dream, if it's a yeah. Anyway, my point being,
what is the
what's the point of this? To that end, you know, and I write about this in the book, how I would like bribe you to specifically in the book I mention Alpha, which, if you don't know what Alpha is, it is a basic course in Christianity, which really explains the heart of Christianity being a relationship, not a religion. And you know my heart, Molly. I know it's not about religion, about do's and don'ts, about being good enough, about a list of rules. It is about an intimate relationship with Him. And Alpha is a course that kind of spins that out. So I paid you $300.
That's correct.
Back in the day to take Alpha in the hopes that you would discover an intimacy with Him. You weren't having any of it back then. Now, in this past year, during cancer, really, I mean, I was recovering from cancer, but also during when COVID hit, and we started a big Zoom Alpha course where anybody from anywhere could jump on. You took Alpha again. Could you just explain the difference between your mindset when you first took it and I had to pay you, and the second time you took it, and you took it freely for your own desires?
I did. I received zero compensation for the second time. I think the first time I just wasn't interested. I felt like I kind of knew everything about God, and I was just living my life and I didn't really care. And then the second time, I feel like I'm becoming more and more, as I age, wanting to be at the core just a better person. And I think that's what attracts me so much to God, is that I see how you are compared to other people I know. And you are just the definition of gracious and kind and joyful. And I just want to be more like that. And
I didn't pay her to say that. I promise.
And I just want to be those things. And so I was like, I really need help. I want to have things in my mind that just like make me calm, and something that I can like go to when I'm worried, etc. So I joined, and it was great. And I mean, obviously I don't know everything about God. I didn't then, I don't now. But it was just good. I mean, some things were just a good reminder, and other things were new. And I really enjoyed it.
And you felt like that kind of jogged maybe some things you had learned and embraced as a child a bit, but now you're more into your mature years, trying to figure it out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, really just my last question. And
last question.
Yeah, maybe you could expound upon this just a little
okay.
bit. This might be two questions in one. Let me see how I can phrase it.
Oh boy.
I do know that you wish I were a part of the inclusive movement inside the church that embraces homosexuality and really doesn't think Scripture commands sexual purity. Mm-hmm. And that you wish I could like join that camp. And yet we've had multitude of conversations as to why I cannot. Mm-hmm. And yet you haven't canceled me, which happens a lot in our culture today. You have to admit, when people do not agree wholeheartedly mm-hmm. on passionate subjects like this, oftentimes they'll cancel each other, kind of like, all right, if you don't agree, then don't talk to me. Mm-hmm. But you have never even indicated ever that you would have that attitude. And I guess I want you to comment on that, because listeners, I know there's a lot of you out there that you love your daughter or your son. There's a lot of respect and honor and great love and passion, but you disagree on what it really means to be a true Christ follower. How do you stay in relationship? How do you value honest, open communication about these things without the anger or the feeling dishonored or dismissed? Both staying open. That's a big is that even a question?
I don't know, but I will talk. Well, I love you. And so I think that's the main reason why I wouldn't just not speak to you again. But even if for some people that I don't love, or I don't love as much as you, I think that is more and more like what I'm learning, like getting closer to God, is to not be so divisive and quick to anger, and just being more understanding. And I think the world would be so much better if, obviously, not everyone is going to agree on everything. It's impossible. There's so many people in the world and so many different beliefs and ideas. And I think that anyone can coexist and even have amazing relationships with different beliefs if you come with love, grace, and understanding. And so I understand where you're coming from. I know you don't have bad intentions. I know you love me more than anyone, right?
Yeah.
And
except Jesus.
So
my other kids and husband. I have to say that too.
So I can respect your beliefs. and we can have open conversations.
Absolutely. And I really do want to thank you for coming on here and being vulnerable, being open, being honest. And I really do admire the way you stay open and you engage in conversations. I got to speak at a church a couple weeks ago, and Molly was right there on the front pew, embracing me as I came off the stage, listening with an open heart, with an open mind, wanting to get close to God. And so, you listeners, if you are interested at all in, I want to say in meeting the one who knows all truth, because none of us have a corner on all truth.
Oh, I thought you were going to say meeting me.
No. I wanted to
Who are they meeting?
Start out by saying, and I got my sentence structure mixed up. I wanted to start out by saying, hey, none of us has a complete corner on all truth. All of us are wrestling with how to live life to the fullest. Mm-hmm. None of us are doing it perfectly, but we're all seeking truth. Okay, and we're all seeking to grow, to hopefully we're all seeking to improve our character and become more Christ-like, whether you would define it in those terms or not, right? To have a relationship with God, we're all seeking that. None of us do it perfectly, but there was one on earth who did. There
Jesus.
was one on earth who is the absolute truth, and that's Jesus. So if you want to meet him, obviously, read the Gospels first in the Bible. If you don't have one, email me, I'll send you one. Especially the Gospel of John, I think really portrays Jesus in such a beautiful way. But you also might want to pick up the book, She Speaks Stories, Finding Hope, Help, and Healing in a Hard World, just to read about how a regular, ordinary person in this day and age met Jesus and how he really changed my life from hard to hopeful, from feeling kind of wandering, lost, purposeless, to feeling absolutely secure in his arms and purposeful. Changed my life from wanting glory for myself, which is really hard to get and secure, to really just wanting to glorify him because he is worthy. So you might want to pick up that book because it is just stories about that. It'll come out in January. Woo! And we'll be just throwing out updates out there about what's happening with the publishing process and all that. But we wanted to start with a little interview with Molly, because the whole story we just told you really was the motivation for me to even write this book in the first place. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation, and thank you, listeners.
Thanks.
Bye.